Our topic right now is the abortion case, so I'm going to go back out to the U.S. Supreme Court and go to Julia Benbrook right now because, as I said, Pelosi spoke earlier about the abortion case. We have also heard from Mitch McConnell celebrating this ruling. Bring us up to speed, Julia, on what we are hearing from congressional leaders.
Yeah, and Annika, you mentioned earlier, we started the day with 9 cases left. And people, because of that leak, that unprecedented leak, when Politico published the draft of Alito's majority opinion, people have been out here every single decision day. But I will say, our group has been out here as well. It has felt different today. I started to see a little bit more security going up around that time. The crowds have gotten a little bit quieter, but they've gotten bigger since that decision was announced. But I want to go to that congressional reaction you mentioned. On the Republican side, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell quickly responded to this decision. He said, quote, "The Supreme Court's landmark ruling in Dobbs is courageous and correct. This is an historic victory for the Constitution and for the most vulnerable in our society." He also went on to add that for 50 years, states have been unable to enact even modest protections for unborn children. States will have different ways to make decisions now after this case. Then on the other side, in the House, on the Democratic side, we heard from Speaker Pelosi there for a little bit, but she also said this ruling is cruel and outrageous and heart-wrenching. But make no mistake, the rights of women and all Americans are on the ballot this November, showing that members of Congress are going to use this as they head into election time. She called this a slap in the face for women, and I believe we do have a little bit more from her earlier talk to share with you now.
Because of Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, and the Republican Party, their supermajority in the Supreme Court, American women today have less freedom than their mothers. With Roe and their attempt to destroy it, radical Republicans are charging ahead with their crusade to criminalize health freedom.
And so, Julia,
I want to expect to hear from President Joe Biden. That is scheduled for 12:30. That is the first time we will be getting his reaction in front of a crowd.
Josh, I want to get into this conversation you had with criminal defense attorney Jeremy Saland yesterday, because it sort of relates to the messages that we learned from our parents and learned in school, which was if someone is in a position to judge you, you probably want to be nice to them in the time leading up to them making their decision. And Trump has not been kind either to Alvin Bragg or to the judge in this case. Here's what Saland told us about that.
He is not serving himself by constantly being defensive and angry, even if he feels it's unjust. This is not the time or place to start running your mouth and saying things that could turn around and alienate a potential jury or just hurt his own case by being inconsistent in his own statements.
And one of the reasons, Pat, I reached out to Saland and others who have been, at 100 Center Street is that they have actual experience with the nuances of this case. That's something that Trump doesn't have. Trump is extremely good at making these speeches and rallying his base, but he is going to be in a really odd position right now. He is not in control when he heads down there. He might not be handcuffed. He might not have a mugshot taken of him, but he's going to be fingerprinted, and he's going to have to wait. And he is at the mercy of the criminal justice system in the city of New York right now. That's a very odd place for someone who is used to getting his way. So that was the advice given by a criminal defense attorney and a former Manhattan prosecutor, and I suspect that that would be the advice from any good criminal defense attorney.
Yeah, there may, for security reasons, be some accommodations afforded in terms of private rooms for them to be in, but it will not be quite as comfortable as he is right now up in Trump Tower. Josh, thank you. My colleague at New York One News, Jamie Stelter, is in London. Jamie, good morning. You've been there for a few days, but we got the main event now.
The day is finally here, Pat. Good morning and good to be with you on the Coronation Day. It has been a big build-up over the last few days. It's overcast, it's a little bit drizzly, but that has not dampened the spirits of anyone here. We have talked to people from all over the globe who have come here just for this. Cameras are out, people are posting to all their social media, and for King Charles, all this attention is nothing new. The royal family might put on the best show on earth. Weddings, funerals, births, jubilees, and now Saturday's coronation of King Charles. A moment 7 decades in the making. Born November 14, 1948 in Buckingham Palace, the eldest child of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. Charles was the first heir to be educated outside the palace. In 1969, he formally became the Prince of Wales.
I hope and trust that in time I shall be able to offer my own contribution.
Then, Charles met Diana. By the time they marry at London's St. Paul's Cathedral, Princess Diana was 20, Prince Charles 32. 1 year later, in 1982, their first child, Prince William, was born, becoming second in line to the throne. Then, Prince Harry. But their marriage was rocky, stalked by paparazzi, plagued by the threat of another woman.
There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
That woman, Camilla Parker Bowles, is now his wife, set to be crowned queen. Charles and Diana divorced in 1996. 1 year later, she was killed in a car crash in Paris, changing the monarchy forever. That's when Charles honed in on his royal duties and passions, like fighting climate change.
You have been called, ladies and gentlemen, to positions of responsibility at this critical time.
He spent so much of his life in his mother's shadow. Now, Americans have fixated on William and Kate and Harry and Meghan. It is that family dynamic and now rift where the future of the monarchy lies. The big looming question, where Charles will now take the crown and the country.
As the Queen herself did with such unswerving devotion, I too now solemnly pledge myself, throughout the remaining time God grants me, to uphold the constitutional principles at the heart of our nation.
And as we watch them arrive for the big day, we pretty much know what will happen inside the Abbey. The British are known for sticking to their protocols in a quite strict fashion. The big question, Pat, is how will the public react to the new king, both here and around the world?
32 years after he launched his first bid for the White House, Joe Biden walked out on stage here in Delaware and addressed the nation for the first time as president-elect, pleading with the country to, quote, "Let us be the nation that we know we can be." Biden said in his speech that he was humbled by the trust and confidence voters placed in him and that he pledged to be a president who sought not to divide but to unify. The president-elect also talked about controlling the coronavirus as it continues to spread across the country, rooting out systemic racism, saving the planet from climate change, and restoring decency.
We stand at an inflection point. We have an opportunity to defeat despair, to build a nation of prosperity and purpose. We can do it. I know we can. I've long talked about the battle for the soul of America. We must restore the soul of America.
In one of his first official acts as president-elect, Biden said that on Monday he would be announcing members of a coronavirus task force he will be establishing to finalize the Biden-Harris plan to tackle the pandemic. The president-elect also used his primetime address to point out that Kamala Harris was making history, not only as the first woman to be elected vice president, but also the first woman of color. Reporting in Wilmington, Delaware, Taylor Popolars, Spectrum News.
Shortly before 1 a.m. Wednesday morning, 5 girls are led to this foster care facility with instructions in Spanish. The facility, Cayuga Centers, has been processing hundreds of children separated from their parents at the southern border. They're then brought to the city 2,000 miles or more away. These young children are said to be among them.
This policy has now come home right here to New York City.
About 12 hours later, Mayor de Blasio speaks after a meeting at the same center. He says there are hundreds of kids taken from their parents in the 5 boroughs, 239 at facilities run by Cayuga Centers alone.
These children are across a whole range of ages. The youngest to come here, they told us, was 9 months old.
That's a rare, specific fact. The mayor and the governor appear to be learning key elements of what's happening in New York in real time. That's because federal agencies breaking up these families are, by all accounts, uneager to share information with local officials here. The news media is also getting the brush off.
And literally, it's just been a chaotic mess.
One with apparently enough political damage for President Trump for him to reverse the separation order his administration was eagerly defending.
I think the word compassion comes into it, but it's still equally as tough, if not tougher.
But it's unclear what the order will do for the kids already taken. Will they be reunited with their parents? And will parents and children now be detained together indefinitely, flouting a court order limiting the time kids can be held? What is becoming clearer is what brought those 5 girls to Harlem before dawn. Governor Cuomo says they are among the estimated 2,000 separated from their families at the southern border.
That's what the facilities have told us, yes.
Both the mayor and the governor appear eager to continue the protest against the Trump administration's immigration policies. Thursday, de Blasio will be in Texas. He is to join other mayors in attempting to gain access to a detention facility. Josh Robin, New York 1.